everyone, welcome. My name is Jessica and I am a life transformation coach helping others transform their lives in positive ways. So today we are going to jump into part one of my meditation mini series, and just right off the bat, I want to say that this is not a meditation boot camp. This is not going to go super in depth into concepts or technicalities around meditation. This is more of an introductory, high-level overview of meditation, geared more towards those who are new to meditation. So maybe you've never heard of it, maybe you've heard of it, never tried it, never wanted to try it, might be considering trying it but haven't actually done it yet. Or maybe you've recently started trying meditation and you're just maybe a little insecure, like, am I doing this right? So for part one, we are just going to talk about what is meditation. And that may seem very rudimentary, very basic, and, a question like, well, meditation is just sitting there. You just sit there for a while and you try not to think thoughts. And yes, that's a little bit true, but there's a little bit more to it than that. Not more in terms of effort, but more in terms of what meditation provides to us. So, what is meditation? Meditation is essentially bringing yourself back more fully to the present moment. So later in the series, we'll talk about different ways to meditate, different forms and styles that can help you achieve that. But we are just essentially bringing ourselves back to the present moment, to a calmer state, to a state of peace or quieting of the thoughts, calming of the anxieties, lifting of depression type feelings. Now, this is not a cure. I just want to say that right off the bat. This is not to be taken as any form of a treatment or a cure. However, meditation really brings us back into balance with ourselves in moments that are challenging, that can induce anxiety or depression, like, feelings if you're grieving, if you're going through a rough patch in life. Even if you're perfectly happy, meditation has a lot of benefits for people. So it's quieting our mind, bringing our awareness and attention back to the present moment, so we get out of the anxieties about the future, anxieties about mistakes in the past, depression about things in the past, fears or depression about the future. If maybe you're going through a doom and gloom state, meditation can help with just bringing all of those thoughts, all that mental energy back, and quieting it into this present moment now. So it is essentially disconnecting you from your environment, so in such a way that you are not reactive, right? So when we meditate, what we're really doing is we are sort of turning down the volume on our sensory intake from what's going on around us. And that can include thoughts, okay? So even though thoughts are inside of us, sometimes we all get into those cycles where it feels like our thoughts are going off the rails, and we may feel like we don't have a lot of control. Our minds are just boom, 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 going through thought after thought, and you're just struggling to, I'll just say, control it, right? We never want to have control issues, with anything in life, because sometimes that causes more challenge for us, but we just feel a little bit out of control sometimes with our thoughts. Can you guys relate? So we're quieting our mind, we're disconnecting from our environment, we are going inward, and a lot of people liken it to a quiet form of prayer. So some people view it as connecting with whatever term they use to define God, whether that's God, source, whatever you call it, right? That universal energy, love, the creator, and just being in a quiet space with that energy. So not necessarily thinking thoughts like in prayer where you're sending out positive intentions, but just sitting in that peaceful space where you feel as though you are surrounded by calm, right? Or a sense of serenity where you're not stressing about your to-do list. You're not regretting what you said to your best friend on the phone when you got triggered. You're really just bringing it to a slower paced, calm space within your mind. And so when we get into this space and we are connecting to that inner calm, that inner stillness, we really connect to universal energy. So that energy of well-being that's available to us always, that is sometimes cut off by those stressful tendencies, anxieties, panics, regret, depression, grief, those negative, what we would call, negative emotions that might pop up and sort of block the stream of well-being from flowing to us. So meditation is a really good way to get around some of those not so good feeling emotions or thoughts or patterns, patterns of behavior, patterns of mindset, patterns of lifestyle even. Meditation is very helpful for beginning to enact change in your lifestyle. It sort of brings you back into alignment with your inner core, So maybe you are convinced that, a certain behavior that you do that maybe triggers people is, something that is super admirable, or you're just really committed to it and you're like, this is who I am, take it or leave it. When we meditate, now this is just an example, right? I don't want anyone to get triggered here, but when we meditate, sometimes what we find is a different perspective arises from the calmness, and we can sometimes better see objectively why we are carrying certain thoughts, engaging in certain behaviors, interacting with others in the way that we do, and also what is driving us to be so committed to those things. And oftentimes this is, we tend to highly link our identity with how we act, how we think, what we have, who we know. We kind of construct this identity of ourselves over time based on our external environment. And so meditation really has this powerful transformative way of kind of distancing us a little bit from all of those check boxes on our list of our identity, and we can really get into a neutral space about the world, others, even ourselves, most importantly ourselves, and just kind of observe, not actively thinking with thoughts like, why do I do this? This isn't good. Is it good? Do I like it? Do I want to change it? We're not going into an analysis mode in meditation. It's more of a passive receiving of insights, right? You might have a thought that pops up out of nowhere, or drops in your mind out of nowhere, and you're like, okay, that's interesting. And then when you come out of meditation, maybe you can ponder it for a little bit. So it's really a good way to disconnect from the external world for a little bit, get in touch with yourself, some quiet time for yourself, connect with that inner peace and inner calm, and perhaps, usually, it becomes usually once you meditate more regularly, usually have some new insights that arise for you that you can then use as motivation or a launch pad for some first steps, no matter how big or small, it all counts. Some first steps towards making little tweaks in your daily routine, in how you show up for others, in how you show up in the world, to begin seeing some positive changes in our lives. So when we are meditating, this is part of what meditation is. When we are meditating, there's a lot of questions that come up from my clients about, how do I know that I'm doing it right? You guys have that thought? You guys wondering, how do I know I'm doing it right? And we tend to immediately assume there's a wrong way, right? We have this sort of idea, this dualistic idea that there's a good way and a bad way, a right way and a wrong way, a successful way, and a way that's guaranteed for failure. Meditation is more of I wouldn't call it so much a process as a practice. So anything we practice, we go into with a desire to learn, with a desire to enjoy, with a desire to improve. And even if we start off bad at it, right? We'll just use the word bad. I don't like it, but we'll do it. Even if we start off bad at it, it's still good, because that's you setting your baseline upon which you're going to build as you continue to meditate. So there's really no wrong or bad way to meditate unless you're not doing it, of course, right? So in response to this question that I get a lot about how do I know if I'm doing it right? Now that we covered there's no right or wrong, some feelings or experiences you could have when you're meditating that might indicate that you are progressing in your practice, that you're getting better, that you are quieting your mind even more effectively than perhaps in past meditation sessions, that you are sinking into a deeper state of calm, a deeper state of brain activity, where you're really just kind of mellowing out your system, bringing it back more into homeostasis with itself, being more present. Some of those feelings that you might have as you're meditating is a sinking feeling, not to be confused with, let's say you're laying on the couch or in bed or you're in class, right? I think a lot of us have been there where we're in class, we're kind of falling asleep sitting up, and you just don't realize you're falling asleep until you feel your head snap, right? Your body catches your head. So we're not talking about that kind of sinking where it catches your attention to wake up. This is more of like you feel your energy within yourself. You know what you feel like throughout the day normally. And as you calm your mind and start meditating, you might feel a lot of your fullness or energy kind of drop down from your head. So you'll feel the energy sort of like lightening or relaxing downwards, because a lot of us spend most of our day in our head. Maybe we have very analytical careers, we're in school and we're absorbing so much information in class all day, or maybe you are a stay-at-home parent and you're just constantly keeping track of the kids and managing schedules and agendas and who knows what might pop up, managing family, neighbors, social engagements. Sometimes we just get very much in our head. So as you deepen in your practice, especially if you are a newbie to the practice, you may just feel that energy sort of releasing from your head and going downwards. And it's not a shifting of anxiety, right? So we're not talking about the anxiety feeling. We're just talking about how sometimes your mind, like especially up here, can sort of feel like congested or full. That sinking feeling is just kind of that like softening of that sensation, and it just sort of like you can just almost feel your body on the inside like like that, right? Also, what you could feel is sort of a floating feeling or a drifting feeling. So these are sort of related in that you are just feeling your body relax out of that unconscious rigid stance. So as you go about your day, you're sort of like energized, active, ready to go, and you're prepared for what's next. And we sometimes become unaware of how much our muscles are prepared and holding and slightly tensed, right? Like we are so actively engaged in what we're doing and our plans and our to-do list. Our body is just sort of holding all that energy for us so that we're ready to take the next move. And so with the sinking or the drifting or the floating feeling, that's really just us becoming aware of the release of all of that stored energy, and our body is just taking a very subtle inward sigh and letting out that sigh from all of our muscles and just relaxing into the present moment and feeling safe and feeling like there isn't a next thing, right? It's like a true timeout for the body and the mind, and everything just sort of sighs, right? So also you might start to feel a sense of weightlessness, or lose awareness of your body. So this is when you are really getting into those really restorative layers of meditation, where you're kind of, for lack of, knowing really how to describe the sensation of it, it's almost like you are riding a very fine line between being and not being. So like being would be, we're aware of our muscles, we have control of our muscles. If we want to move our arm, we may not consciously register that we're tightening our arm, we just have the thought or the intention and the arm moves, which means that our muscles are already activated and ready to go in case we decide to move our arm. And not being would be like when you are asleep, right? Like you are drifting off to sleep and you're no longer aware. You're kind of between awake and not awake. Or when you're first coming out of sleep, that brief period of time between being in your dream and first realizing you're awake. So many people equate that to a feeling of weightlessness, or generally losing awareness of their body and or the world around them. So they just sort of are, but they're not aware that they are, if that makes sense. And then also what some people may experience are, outside of those sort of states of being, or states of feeling, right, internally, some people do actually have some internal physical sensations. So, this is kind of what I would call like the energy moving for you in your body when you're finally relaxed in that meditative state. Maybe you've stored some energy somewhere and it can finally kind of get out of that cage that it's been in as all your other muscles have been tensed, or, your mind is just sort of like compartmentalized it for the day. Then you meditate before bed and it can finally come up, right? And so those feelings are generally not extreme, so nothing to cause like concern or to aggressively take your attention out of your meditation. But they're usually very subtle, very soft, and just light sensations. What those are, some people feel like a buzzing sensation or a vibrating sensation. So, maybe like little flutters somewhere on your skin, or it just sort of feels like, I'm trying to think of a good example. So if you've ever had someone kind of hit a tuning fork by you and you put your hand sort of towards it, you can sort of feel that buzzing in the air, the vibration coming off the tuning fork. Some people say it feels like that. That's what the buzzing, vibrating feels like. It's just this like, bzz, like in one spot of your body, or like a even just like a pinprick point. It's really unique to each individual. It's nothing to be alarmed about. That's absolutely normal. Sometimes they will feel like a pulsing or a twinge. So instead of like a very fast, soft vibration or buzzing, they'll feel more of like a boop, 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 like a true pulsing of energy that's very rhythmic, in one localized area. Or maybe, like their thigh. They'll just sort of feel this like energetic pulsing, like their thigh is pulsing. And again, nothing to be worried about. It's just sort of how your body is working its way back through the calmness into homeostasis. And meditation really, when you're able to Make it a regular part of your routine and you practice it frequently. I recommend every day. I know a lot of people are convinced they don't have time to meditate, but we all have 5 minutes. 5 minutes. So if you maybe extend your bathroom break a little bit, you can sit in the bathroom and just close your eyes, find that calm space, maybe turn on the timer on your phone for 5 minutes, put your earbuds in so no one else hears it go off. Very crafty. I have some good suggestions for you guys on how to sort of sneakily meditate, right? That can come a little bit later, but it's just so effortless and takes 5 minutes a day. I mean, it doesn't have to be an intensive practice. You don't have to, treat it like an hour-long appointment or a huge time commitment. You could do 3 minutes 10 times a day whenever you have 3 minutes, and that adds up. It really adds up cumulatively, especially when you are doing it every day, every other day. It's really just priming your body to become more familiar with that state. So meditation really brings us back to that state. You remember when you're little and you're playing with a toy, or you're with friends and you just get into that flow state and you're doing the game or you're playing with your toy and you're in your imagination. And even though you're imagining things, you're just sort of like unaware of your body. You're just so in the moment. You're so in the flow of whatever's going on, super engaged. That's kind of what meditation recreates, is bringing us back to that free-flowing state where our energy is not blocked by thoughts or emotional burdens or daily triggers. You're just free-flowing and letting your energy flow. And, I really like to use the word chi. I feel like there's a lot of wisdom in the ancient Eastern practices, and, I can talk more about that in another session for sure, because I think there's a lot of value to be had there that we can integrate into our modern lives. But so you may hear me use the word chi a lot. It's just sort of the representation of life force energy, that spark of well-being that we all have access to, that's within us all the time, but that sometimes gets rerouted, on a detour and ends up in, we'll call it the wrong place, but maybe not where it was intended to go. And then it maybe accumulates or gets stagnant or stuck. And we end up experiencing, challenges, or whether it's emotional or physical. But essentially, I'll use the word chi a lot whenever I talk about meditation or things related to meditation, things like that, Eastern practices. But meditation is one area where I feel that chi is very much activated for us, and that is what I equate those buzzing sensations to. So if you feel the buzzing, the pulsing, the vibrating, that's that current. That's the current that's starting to flow again, or perhaps breaking through some of those compartments, right? Where we've compartmentalized our emotions or an experience. Someone makes us mad in the McDonald's drive-thru and we just have to forget about it. We'll deal with it later because we got to get our kids to wherever. We all do it, right? So meditation can really help us allow our bodies to calm down enough to disconnect from the environment enough to sort of let that go, to let it flow and let it go. What I'd like to do now is just, for everyone watching this, let's just see if we can relax our mind. So we're not going to spend 5 minutes or 10 minutes here. We're just going to see if we can get there. So let's maybe all in our minds, we'll kind of close our eyes. We'll focus on, when we close our eyes, we're going to focus on the darkness of our eyelids. So we're not going to imagine what's going on around us based on sounds we hear or whatever. We're just going to focus on that darkness that we see on the back of our eyelids. And what I would like for you guys to do is just see if you can break the thoughts. So as you have thoughts come up, see if you can just bring your mind back to the present moment and let those thoughts go. So if you're having thoughts pop up, sometimes what I like to do is just say, thank you, I now invite you to leave. And just sort of imagine that thought just walking off stage left, right? It's just gonna leave. Gracefully bow out of your mind and then come back to the calmness of your mind. Don't forget to breathe, you guys. Very important to breathe. Okay, so that was